What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bluegrass State of Mind, the show where three college roommates talk life, sports, and all the ridiculous things that happen in an apartment we like to refer to as Room 302. We're bringing you stories, hot takes, and the kind of late-night debates that probably should have stayed in the group chat.
So grab your headphones, sit back, and get ready for a wild ride through our past college life, sports, and everything in between. Let's get into it. This is Bluegrass State of Mind.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. We have a full episode for you all tonight. It is going to be a lot of information, so buckle up and get ready to rock with us. So what we're looking at tonight, we're going to go over this whole 5 and 5, the updates. We've had a ton of information that's come our way since last Thursday, on our last episode. So we're going to get into all of the Mark Mitchell updates, the 5 and 5, the conferences, the SEC, ACC, Big 12, get into a little BSM from the stands, talk about if Mark Mitchell is eligible, what he will mean for this team, and then we'll close the night with some golf on the Tour Championship being held this week. So before we actually dive into that, I wanted to allow us to kind of give our takes, not in detail exactly of what's going on, but just as a whole, how we're feeling. And I'll lead it off and I'll shoot it over to you all. But I'm exhausted. As a fan, I feel like I am in a law class, constantly looking up what this means in court. Like that shouldn't be like, what are we doing? Right? Like, I just feel like there's so much going on. And every day is something new for us to look into. And it's really gotten so far away from just it being about basketball. And not only basketball, but football and college sports. We have strayed away so far. And this whole NIL it's expanded so much more than what I think we ever would have imagined it was supposed to have been to what it is right now. Mason, what's your initial thoughts on it? I mean, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I think exhaustion is a good word. Chaos, Wild West. I just don't understand why they just let all this roll out without setting any rules, right? Like at this point, it's dragged on long enough. It feels like every day something new comes out, something's changing. This guy's eligible this day, the next day he's not. Like all this back and forth. At this point in the process, just make a decision, right? Mm-hmm. Like either make everybody eligible or make nobody eligible, because all you're doing is you're wasting these coaches' times, you're wasting these programs' time, you're wasting these players' time, right? At the NCAA, if they're all about the players, right? They're all for the players, then why do we keep dragging this out? Like, just make a decision either way. It doesn't matter. Stop dragging this out. Coaches have no certainty. Players have no certainty. Mark Mitchell, for example, right now he thinks he's going to play at the University of Kentucky next year. Let's say in a month it comes out and he's ineligible, and now he can't sign with a G League team, can't sign with an overseas team. Like, he missed out on these opportunities because he thought he was going to have the opportunity to play college basketball next season. And every other day, something keeps changing.
Yeah.
So at this point, make a decision. It's so all this back and forth. Everybody's tired of it. You can't keep up with it. Who knows what's going to happen? Either everybody's eligible or nobody's eligible. And then you set rules starting at the end of next year for this next incoming class. And those rules are in concrete. All right.
Well, and in a sense, it's like we're wasting time. Not only for these programs, but for these players. Are they going to play? That's a good point. Like, make a decision. What are we doing? And I know going to court, and that's a whole different beast. And I mean, I'm not comfortable in that space just because I'm not a lawyer. But I mean, like, come on. I mean, like, let's get this ball rolling. Make a decision, like you said. Colton, where are you at with this? I mean, I know you're like us. Like, it's just like, what's going on?
Yeah, what you're saying is a result of giving the players so much power early on, especially in the NIL era, that you gave. I think we all knew we could start to see the trend that the players are eventually going to get paid, right? Like that, it was going to happen. I guess in our mind, we never would have dreamed like to this extent, but when that happened, the NCAA didn't set anything, right? They've left all these doors open for so much stuff, and they just allowed this stuff to happen. When you transfer those type of changes, you have to have consequences with it. And the NCAA didn't form it. They didn't form consequences with it. And it's the same way, right? Like these guys are now what should be treated like employees are not treated like employees. They're getting $3 million and they can sit on the bench. And if they don't perform or they don't play good or they don't even play, they're still getting their money. If we go to work and we don't do good, we're getting fired. But like they don't have any risk. They're signing a contract and they're getting the money regardless. And so like these guys are fighting to come back now. Like they don't want to get, why? Because $3 million is more they're going to make as a rookie or playing in the G League. So why wouldn't you want to try and play for another year? Why wouldn't you want to take it all the way to the court? Because if y'all can make $5 million next year on a team, I mean, then like, why would you not try to fight for that? Because I mean, that's life-changing money if they use it right. Like, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially the type of players that are trying to come back. Like if they were lottery picks, they'd be gone.
100%. So they just, to me, the NCAA just messed up by allowing this transition but not setting the rules set in stone that there was consequences to these things. And now it's become a free-for-all and they can't really back it up with anything because they let it happen too far. Mm-hmm. And it's just become chaos.
And we all, I think, can agree, at least I've said before, and I think you all have agreed that, like, as far as, like, this all started and it feeds off of NIL, right? And like we've all stated, I know for sure I have, that like NIL was good for college sports. You have people wanting to stay longer. You know, that's what was one of our things. Like, oh man, we don't ever get to like see these players because they leave automatically, and they're able to perform at a higher level. We're able to keep some players, and just overall the competitiveness of college sports has improved. However, though, Colton Mason, like whenever you first heard NIL, like what was your thoughts on NIL? Like what did that mean to you all? What would players be banking off NIL? What did that consist of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, when you think about that, I actually did one of my college research papers over this, right? And it was basically just saying like they should be rewarded for the profit that universities are making off jerseys, hats, you know, things that they're selling that have their name or tied to them as an actual student athlete.
Which makes sense, but that's a basic, simple, like, we get that.
Yeah, but not this where you go and play, you can play 1 year and make more money than probably 90% of people in this world or in this country do in their lifetime, right? Like, you know, some of these players are making $6, $7, $8 million for 1 year, which is absolutely insane. I mean, I've said it on here before. It's almost like at this point, because these rules weren't made up, you know, jerseys, hats, shirts, you know, whatever it is, but now they're just getting paid all this cash. It's turned into a professional sports league. That's all it is. It's literally all it is at this point. You know,
and you're affiliated with a university at the same time.
Exactly.
And I mean, do we really care about it? I mean, I guess not, but it's just so messy right now and chaotic. All right, well, let's get right into this. What news has broke today as of today, which is Wednesday, August 26th, and then everything else that has led us up to here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of unpack everything and kind of take it piece by piece, because there's just so much information. So hopefully it will help you all who are listening, who are still like, I really don't understand everything that's going on. We're going to try to break it down for you all and kind of explain what's going on to the best of our knowledge. Before we get to that, though, you can probably look and see Colton's wearing a hat. I'm wearing a nice hat too. That is Bluegrass Elite. This episode is sponsored to you in part by Bluegrass Elite. So if you haven't had a chance, go over to their website, that is bluegrass-elite.com, and use our code BSM302, or you can click the link that we've shared on our socials. I'll attach with this episode as well. Just click on that and you immediately get 15% off. They have hats, hoodies, shirts, anything, crew necks, anything you want. Kentucky sports season, football season is 2 weeks away roughly. Like, go ahead and go to our friends over at Bluegrass Elite, get you some UK merchandise. So let's get into it. So I'm going to read it piece by piece, and yes, I'm going to be looking away for a little bit and then coming back to you all if you are watching the video version, because there's so much information. Okay, so let's start with the big news that came out today. The SEC, let's start there. So the SEC has now officially put a policy in place dealing with athletes who leave college and they go into professional sports and then they try to come back. Under the new SEC policy, a school can't have an athlete on its roster who previously declared for the NFL, NBA, or WNBA draft and didn't properly withdraw, or signed a professional contract, or was listed on the qualifying professional roster. And the SEC commissioner has the authority to enforce the policy against the member schools. Okay? That's pretty simple. Okay, we have a policy now. The SEC isn't just making, though, this a rule without consequences. Colton, you brought up consequences. They also came out with that, and then a couple hours later, they attached something new today. There's consequences now. So the consequences, Matt Norlander of CBS Sports reports that the conference finalized some pretty serious penalties. These penalties we're talking about 50% of suspension of the head coach's season, a fine that is equal to 50% of that sport's annual operating budget, and the school losing its SEC voting privileges on conference businesses. And there also can be additional penalties at the commissioner's discretion. So when hearing just that, let's start there. So we have now a policy set by not only the SEC, it was the ACC, or excuse me, the Big Ten who came out with this first. SEC followed it, and since then the Big 12 has followed that as well. I'm not sure if the ACC has. Have you all seen anything? Have they came out with anything?
I'm not sure. I would assume they probably will now.
Okay. But Colton, what does that mean? Like for you, when you seen this, was you like, okay, I get it, that's a good step, but like again, it's like chaos, and then all of a sudden we drop down, and now we have consequences. But I think the bigger thing is the consequences. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole lot. And Mason was asking earlier, he was confused. Like when it talks about like cutting, like the SEC says, like they would take 50% of your operating budget. And what I explained to Mason is that the SEC operates on a equal revenue share on like media rights and everything. So like, SEC's got a contract with ESPN, SEC Network, all that stuff. Well, that doesn't just go to, even though Kentucky's going to be your highest rated team in basketball watching on ESPN, they get the same amount of money from the media rights as Vandy or someone like that in the SEC. And so it's spread across equally. So what it's essentially saying is that if you do these things, then for $20 million we're giving to every school, you're getting $10 million while the other ones are getting 20. With $10 million, you talk about, especially a basketball roster. I mean, what kind of different roster can you build if you can go get, 3 different guys for $4 million, $3 million, $3 million? You can probably get three pretty good players for that $10 million. So I mean, it can make a big difference. But man, I think it's a good step in the sense of what they're trying to lay out, especially for the actual professionals, right? Some of these guys are in training, like they've been playing preseason games in the NFL, with 2 weeks until the NFL season, and now they're supposed to be coming back to college. That to me is a little different scenario than some of these seniors that didn't get drafted, or haven't played 5 years of college. They just simply played their 4 years of college, but now they're just trying to look for a 5th year. And I think that guideline at least prevents that, because we definitely do not need to get to that point to where, I mean, how many Kentucky players got drafted in the Cal era that you never really saw in the NBA because they made and what if they could just come back? Or, I mean, it's just I think it's a good step, but now there's still just so much gray area in that.
Correct.
You still just don't know.
And I think, I don't want to really go down this alley, but there's only one person, like people are like, where did this come about? This all comes back to one name, Mr. Lane Kiffin. He kind of was the igniter to this, getting a player that played in the NFL preseason. And then, there was no ruling about this. And then that's kind of where all this, I guess, stemmed from. But that's kind of but that is something, though, to know. So let's bring it back to Kentucky. So that leaves the biggest question, when thinking about the SEC having this policy, the consequences. The question for Kentucky fans is probably, okay, does this knock Mark Mitchell out of eligibility? What does this mean for us? Before I get into this next piece, Mason, they're going to hear us talk about Exhibit 10. They're going to hear that. So I want you to explain the Exhibit 10 because they're going to hear a lot of that about Mark Mitchell. So explain Exhibit 10 and then we'll move on.
Yep. So basically, an Exhibit 10 contract is a 1-year, non-guaranteed NBA minimum salary agreement. And what it does is it basically allows teams to evaluate like a fringe or undrafted player during training camp or the summer league. And most of the time, these types of deals are primarily used to manage G League affiliate rights, fill out preseason rosters without agreeing to those long-term financial commitments. So it's a 1-year, non-guaranteed minimum salary. So just because somebody's, may agree or sign an Exhibit 10 does not mean that they are guaranteed to get paid that money.
Yeah, and that's important, all right? And the reason why is because it comes back to the Kentucky stuff. What does all of this mean for Mark Mitchell? Okay, so let's pick back up. So Mark Mitchell played for the Denver Nuggets Summer League team this summer, and there had been reports that he had signed an Exhibit 10, of which what Mason just described. Okay, he signed that Exhibit 10 contract with Denver. But then there was also news that broke out that it's kind of conflicting information because Jack Pilbrook of KSR reported that Mitchell did not actually sign the Exhibit 10 contract with the Nuggets. Matt Norlander of CBS Sports also reported that Mitchell did not sign a proper NBA contract. And even Kevin Sweeney of CBS Sports or CBB Central said that Mitchell agreed to an Exhibit 10 deal in principle, but he never actually signed the contract before Summer League. So that's a pretty big distinction, Mason, from saying that you agreed upon something, but you didn't actually sign something. And I think most people would understand that. It's kind of like I think of this, like in today's time, a handshake doesn't mean anything. You got to have pen to paper. And everything that we're seeing is that Mark Mitchell didn't put pen to paper for the Exhibit 10, which is a good thing, right? I mean, I think that's crucial. So that's very important. So let's move on. So there was also some discussion about whether being on an NBA Summer League roster could itself make him ineligible since he was on the Denver Nuggets Summer League team. So Zach Turvin, he pointed out that Mitchell was listed on the Summer League roster, but Sweeney had pushed back a little bit, saying that a Summer League roster isn't the same thing as an actual NBA or G League roster. Why is that important? Because Colton, in the SEC statement, it said that you had to be declared for the NFL, NBA, or WNBA draft, also signing a professional contract or being on the roster. So, I think that that's pretty clear and different. Wouldn't you, Colton? At that point, thinking, okay, an NBA G League roster is completely different than the actual NBA team roster. So at this point, where we're at right now, which there's still more stuff, Colton, would you say that Mark Mitchell, based on what we've discussed up to this point, is in the clear? Like, if you had to put a percentage, what would you say that, based on the information that we have given out thus far, there's still more we're going to get to, what would you say Mark Mitchell's chances of being eligible to play at the University of Kentucky would be?
I think it's definitely on the higher side of I think you're closer to like a 65, 70, or 75%. I think you clear a lot of those statements because of the situation that he's currently in. Now, obviously, you don't know what the NCAA as a whole is going to file, or if the SEC is going to file even more. They're going to try to add even more language, right? Right now, they're just making statements. A lot of it's just statements. And it's not like they're saying we're going to form this rule, but it's like, I don't know, who knows if they have anything pen to paper, right? So, I just think that based on the language, he's got a higher chance to play right now, based on language. Now, there's just so many hurdles to come up, but I do think that he falls under, here's another question, and I guess we haven't talked about it much, and maybe I'm just in the blue, but to me, there's been guys that play in the foreign professional leagues, right?
I was going to bring that up.
That are playing right now over here. They've signed professional contracts to play foreign basketball, and then they've been bringing these foreign players over here.
That is true. I think, though, the big thing for me is it doesn't specify the Euro leagues. It says NBA. That would be
I agree, but it's just to me like why is it even a like I could see if they're arguing eligibility 4 years, first 5 years. I can see that, but their argument is about like professional. Like if
That's
you
true.
play
That's a
professional,
good point.
like they're not arguing, oh, he's done his eligibility. We're trying to keep guys that did their 4 years. If you've done exhausted your 4 years, they're arguing professional contract. If you put pen to paper, and a lot of those guys that have come and played college basketball from overseas have put pen to paper and got paid in a professional contract. And so, I mean, I don't know. I just got to thinking about that. I was like, that's kind of a different. I mean, maybe there's differences there, but yeah, right now on paper, I think Mark Mitchell has a decent chance of playing.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up that too, Cole, because I saw somebody mention earlier talking about the Mika Murinen who went to Arkansas. He played in a professional league over in Europe. But here's back to my point earlier. What is the difference? You're paying players no matter what. Like, I get it. Like, you're in a professional league. I guess you've already declared, so that means you're out of college. But like, if you're sitting here saying they can't play in this because they've been paid, there's no difference right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Colton and Mason. I've not even thought about that. I know I had y'all on this podcast for a reason. I will say though, there was even bigger news that broke after that. All right, so let's pick back up. So there was a big clarification. So Ben Roberts of the Lexington Herald-Leader reported that the SEC itself clarified Mitchell's situation. According to the SEC, a player who played in the 2026 NBA Summer League can still be eligible to play in the SEC during the 2026-27 season as long as that player did not enter the NBA draft as an early entrant and never signed an NBA contract, including an Exhibit 10 or two-way contract, which Mitchell did not sign. He agreed. He never signed on the reports that we have read and seen. And basically, on that clarification, Mark Mitchell appears to be in the clear under that new policy, and which makes sense, right? Because Mitchell's specific situation that we're alluding to right now, he had already completed his 4 years of college basketball, so he was automatically eligible for the NBA draft. He didn't have to formally enter the draft as an early entrant. Like his 4 years was up because at the time, like that's what he was done. Like they didn't tell him that this whole thing was going to make him now eligible. And according to Mitchell's brother, his agent, Brandon Mitchell, Mark never did actually sign the Exhibit 10 contract. It was just an agreement. So that's a huge difference when you're looking at this new SEC rule. Mason, when that came out, did that even make you feel even better? Because it was like alluding specifically to this Mark Mitchell situation. It wasn't just talking about any players. Like it was for Mark Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely. And, kudos to whatever his name was that you said that called and specifically asked that, filled in a lot of Big Blue Nation and probably made him feel a little bit better. But the one thing that still worries me is the NCAA, right? Like
that's what we're going to get to next.
The appeals they filed in Ohio. They just filed another one today in
Tennessee. You're already there, so go ahead and lead us into that.
Yeah, so basically, the NCAA is kind of coming behind and appealing all these in-state rulings that have allowed these players to be eligible. And, basically saying like, no, we're going to appeal this. They should not be eligible. And, it's happened in Ohio. It happened in Tennessee. I think today it came out that it happened in Tennessee. So I'm sure one in Kentucky is going to follow. And, at this point, it just kind of circles back to what we've been talking about. Like, admit you made a mistake by not outlining any rules, not outlining any guidelines to whenever this started, and wrap it up. Say, hey, this is completely on us. Either they're eligible as long as they have not played in the NFL, the NBA, whatever it is, or nobody's eligible. We're tired of dealing with this. Nobody's eligible. Because if not, this is going to drag on and on and on and on. There's going to be appeal after appeal after appeal after injunction after appeal. I mean, this may not even be over by the time we get to March. Like, it's just going to keep dragging on. So they have to do something. It's ridiculous at this point.
So, and I think that's a great point because basically, we're looking at two different separate issues here. One is the NCAA and whether the Mitchell ultimately gets to keep that 5th year, which is what Mason just said. And the other is the SEC's new professional athlete policy. Based on what we have gathered and heard, I think Mark Mitchell's going to be in the clear for the SEC professional athlete policy. It's just clearance now of the NCAA to get that 5th year. So there's right now, if there had to be a decision made today, I do think Mark Mitchell would get to play, but there's still so much time, so many appeals. There's still so much information that we're getting every single day. So that's kind of where we're at. And Colton, any closing statements on that before we shift gears into, let's just hypothetically say that Mark Mitchell is on our team, but final thoughts, anything else on that?
Honestly, which I mean, we won't because this is great content for us. But I saw someone post on X that there was no point in them losing sleep or exhausting energy between now and November because there's liable to be 1,000 appeals and 1,000 injunctions. And the truth is, you won't never really find anything until that first game happens and see who's eligible and who's not. And even then, who knows that there won't be something halfway through the season like, the guy that happened for Alabama where he come back from the G League, played 4 or 5 games, and then all of a sudden it was like, nope, they finally passed it. You can't play anymore. He was done. Just random stuff. I mean, that's the world we live in. He left the G League, come in mid-season, played like 7 or 8 games. They decided, no, you can't be here. And then he was done, right? And so who knows? So maybe it is. I mean, it's great content for us, so we're going to keep keeping you guys updated. But honestly, the truth is, I mean, we could talk about this for the next 2 or 3 months and it may not be solved. So
Make a decision and let's be done with it at this point.
And the thing about it, though, too, I at least have to keep reminding myself is I feel like this is all surrounding. There's a bigger spotlight on college basketball, but this is not just college basketball. Right. This is also for college football, which starts literally this Saturday.
And they're saying like this, apparently everything that's just come out is like helping Alex Safari now.
Yeah,
like, that is true.
And I mean, the professional thing is really applying to LSU football.
Yeah,
I mean, this was talking about preseason behind the preseason games last week. I mean, like
for the Browns.
Like this is talking like it's actually really applying to them. But
well, hopefully that cleared up a little bit for you all who were listening and was like, I don't know what's going on. Listen, again, this is just information we're reading online. I don't claim to be a lawyer. I know these two will agree to that and attest to that. However,
changes every minute. You might listen to this tomorrow and it might be completely different.
Right. And I love that, Colton. That's a great way of putting it. Like, there's no reason to lose any sleep because it's going to change. But maybe not even by the night, by the hour. Right. So, all right, let's get into now, hypothetically, let's play this in our heads and we're going to discuss, let's say that Mark Mitchell does get to play, okay? Because at this point, last week, we were still waiting on the injunction for Mark Mitchell to be available. We hadn't had a commitment from Mark Mitchell. We did get that. He has made a commitment now, so let's play this game and let's say, okay, Mark Mitchell on this team now, what does this mean moving forward? Before we do that, though, too, I do want to throw this over to Colton because I want to start with Colton Mason. I'm going to let you two discuss this, and I'll throw my opinions here and there. I did read a tweet, and Colton, I was like, man, this is, I don't know, I immediately thought of you on this. Okay, so this tweet, keep in mind, we now have...
Try to be about Cal, right?
No, it's not about Cal.
That's what I was thinking.
We do have, though, now, hypothetically, if everything works out the way it is right now, we have Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins, Milan Momcilovic, Mark Mitchell, Malachi Marino. That would be our starting 5, is what everybody's stating. So let's just talk about that, okay? But this tweet, it said, passed on Tyron Stokes. Got a more proven Milan Momcilovic. Passed on Rob Wright. Was able to afford both Zoom and Wilkins. Passed on Donnie Freeman and Nicola. Added a better Mark Mitchell. The Mark Pope apologies better be as loud as the hate. And my immediate reaction to that was like, come on now. I keep seeing this word pop up. Pass.
When you kept saying that, I was like, pass.
I'm going to give Mark Pope his flowers. But Colton, let's make something real clear here. We love that the team that we have. We love that Mark Pope has been able to get these guys. But this word passed, the delusional UK fans, they like to call us delusional. Let's talk about this word passed. What is your immediate thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to sit here and pretend like, don't worry, guys. We really knew that the number one transfer was going to drop out of the NBA draft and we were going to get him. Oh, we also knew that there was going to be a million court filings and that this guy was randomly going to get an extra year and he was going to come to Kentucky and file an injunction. I mean, look, I'm giving flowers to Mark Pope.
I'm too.
Because it's happened. But let's stop pretending like this is what he had drawn up in his head. I mean, there's no way. It just wasn't. It's been great for us. I mean, it's working out beautifully right now. But at the end of the day, I mean, and look, we can sit there and say we got Soum Diallo and Alex Wilkins. I hope they're amazing. I really am excited for both of them. They're question marks just like anyone else is. Like we're getting excited, but to act like you didn't want the number one freshman in the country.
Well, every single person we set on there literally came to UK's campus for a visit. We didn't pass on anybody. They just didn't choose us. They all went to BYU.
Right. I would say everyone's going to, we've got to stop going up against BYU. We are not winning that battle right now. The Mormon Church is throwing the money at them. We are just not winning that battle. But man, no, look, we can't pretend like that. We need to be grateful for how the roster turned out. We're excited for how it turned out. However it got done, good for Pope, good for the roster. I think it's best roster he's going to have so far. It's the most excited roster I've been, excited for so far in his tenure, and I'm looking forward to big things. However, let's just still not pretend that there wasn't, flaws to get here. And it was a broken road, but maybe it worked, and that's how we're going to accept it right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. I just wanted to clear that up because, we're static, we're happy. However, though, how did we get here? And I still give Mark Pope his flowers. I will state that. Yes, we've said that and said that. But let's not ignore the fact that we did bring all these guys on campus and they just didn't choose Kentucky. Okay, but now let's talk about it. This team, what it means now. Mason, according to 247 Sports, Kentucky now has the number one ranked transfer class, including the number 2, number 6, and number 29, number 47 players that entered the portal. 1 being Kentucky, 2 Louisville, 3 Tennessee, and as follows from there on. As of right now, remember, we're keeping in mind that we're playing this game that Mark Mitchell is going to get to play. I mean, looking at where we're at, whenever Tyrone Stokes chose Kansas to where we are now, we have the number 1 transfer portal class. I mean, and then also specifically looking at just Mark Mitchell's stats, right? Because that's the biggest thing why we added him on here. According to Tristan Ferris, I'm going to read some of these stats. So he averaged 18.3 points per game last season, was a top 10 scorer in the SEC, but he also averaged 3.6 assists. He had a 25.5% usage rate, 60.6% true shooting, 21.2% assist rate, and 1.7 assist to turnover ratio. The biggest question that I have, Mason, is what does he do to this team? How does he elevate it? Where do we go from where we were without him to now if he's able to play with us? Where are we at now?
Well, for me, I think it fixes some of the holes and question marks that we had, right? Especially on the offensive end. He averaged 18 points in the SEC. He put up 30-something against us last year in the SEC tournament. He's proven he can. Yeah, he's proven he can go get a bucket, right? And that's what we keep saying. It's some of these guys are question marks, right? Yes, they've been good. Wilkins was good at Furman. Is that going to translate to every night in the SEC and the physicality of the SEC? Who knows? And, behind Milan, who was that other guy who was going to step up and go score for us whenever we needed that? And I think you have added that now with Mitchell, right? You give another option that if a guy's having an off night, you have Mark Mitchell to rely on, or if he's having an off night, you have Milan. And then maybe one of those other nights if they're both off, then Alex or Zoom can have a good night. So I think he fixes some of those holes and those question marks that we had offensively and defensively as well, right? I mean, he's big, he's an athlete, he moves well. You've seen films of him being able to kind of put it on the floor and go around guys, guard guys. Obviously another thing that kind of stands out to me is that over 3 assists a game, we know Mark Pope loves to have a big, right, who can facilitate and, stretch the floor and be able to hit these cutters on these zoom actions and back doors and all these things. So I think that's another key piece for us to have. I think Miranda's a decent passer. So if you have two guys that are out there, your bigs that can help stretch the floor and can see the floor well, I think that's another piece that helps add to this team. And I will say this. I said in the beginning, I wanted Keyshawn Hall. The more that I sit here and thought about it and watched, Mark Mitchell highlights, I think this was the best fit that we could have found at this time for what we were missing and what we needed.
Man, Colton tried telling you. Let's just hope he's eligible. Man, I do want to give a shout out here to Tristan Ferris of A Sea of Blue. Like I've been reading some of his tweets, and I love this tweet because I was like, man, that is so right. And it made me think of Colton as well. So last year's team, Colton, you was very adamant when looking at the roster we had. You was very, very, very adamant that you're looking at this team, and it came apparent as the season kind of went on is that we just have a ton of role players. Like other than Otega Owe, right? And I do just want to stay on the record still that I think Otega Owe was a star, and we were finally agreed upon that. It was just a little bit different stardom, but the shift of last year's team to this year's team, and what I'm getting to here, and then Colton, I'm going to say this, some stuff, and I'm going to let you have it, is when thinking of the last year's roster compared to the previous year in Mark Pope's first year, right? We brought in a Denzel Aberdeen, who was the sixth man of the Florida. You look at a Colin Chandler, who was like our sixth, seventh best player on that first year's roster. You have a Jalen Lowe, which probably was the only clear-cut best player on his team. You have a JQ who would have been, but he was hurt, right? You have even an Otega Owe, who you could argue wasn't the best player in that first year. It was Jackson Robinson. You have a Brandon Garrison, who was not the best player. He was like our seventh or eighth man. So Mo Diabate, 6 or 7 man Alabama. We had so many role players, right? None of them had proven like they are the go-to guys, the best player on their team. And Tristan Ferris put something out, and I was like, man, that makes so much sense. I love seeing that and reading that. I hadn't really even, I guess I thought about it, but not until I actually read it. But shifting gears to this year's roster, a complete 180. You have a Zoom Diallo now who led Washington in usage percentage and assists and second in scoring. You can make an argument that he was the best player on that Washington team. You had a Wilkins who led Furman in scoring, assists, and minutes. He was by far the best player on that Furman team. You have a Milan Momcilovic who led Iowa State in scoring. You could argue that he wasn't the best player, but he definitely was right there after the second best. You have a Mark Mitchell, if eligible, led Missouri in scoring and assists, hands down the best player. A Malachi Marino, who in the previous year was a freshman. He's going to be coming in as a primary interior option there. You have a Justin McBride, who was second in scoring at James Madison by 0.3% or 0.3 points. Every single guy that I just stated, Colton, has proven that they are the best player, if not arguably the best player on the team. It's a complete different outlook from last year's team, man. Like, we shouldn't have to worry about these guys proving themselves to be the best guys on this year's team. Now, managing that is a different beast, but what's your thoughts on that? I know you've probably thought about that a little bit because that goes directly to what you was so big on last year is like looking at our team, like we just have a bunch of role players.
We did. And that's what, because I was big on, we had thought we were getting Caleb Wilson, right? We thought we were getting Caleb Wilson for a long time and we didn't. And then we talked about how deep our roster was, right? And I felt like we gave up a chance of maybe tacking on some extra money to get some of these stars, especially in the year that was perhaps the best freshman class of all time. That we kind of turned away some stars maybe from not putting it to maybe get a deeper roster, right? Like I think that was the plan. It was like, oh, we want a deeper roster, but you filled it full of role players. And what you found out is when we were playing these other teams is that they didn't have just role players. Like they had really good players. I mean, you take the Iowa State game that we got beat by 30 and to finish the year, right? Milan and that was a studly team. Like, and you can sit there and say, oh, well, it's just different in the sense of, well, yeah, you're right. We didn't have any truly proven players on it. And then the few that you did have, if you want to say you did, were injured. So, I mean, they're your backups. We're all just role players the whole year. And this year's team just looks completely different from that, right? I just think that my biggest thing about Mark Mitchell is I don't know what his conditioning is going to be like, and I don't know how much he was staying in shape. But at the end of the day, if he's in shape, I think he's a guy that has to be on the floor 32 plus minutes a game. Because even if he's not scoring, I think he's a guy that's going to be able to provide you plus on the plus minus in multiple areas, right? Whether he's rebounding, whether he's stretching, whether he can play the defense on the stretch four, right? Things that I'm afraid that some of the other guys aren't going to have weaknesses. I think he's the one player we're going to have on the court that has the capability of doing a little of everything, right?
Mason, or go ahead. I thought you were done.
No, yeah, I'm done.
Well, Mason, Colton, I love that you brought this up because I was going to talk about this too. Is he said Mark Mitchell has got to be on the floor 32, 33 minutes. You know, here we go again. Like Mark Pope, I better not see guys playing 24, 25 minutes. You just can't do it. I mean, I know, like you talk, and I feel for these guys. I feel for the Usman. I feel for the Justin McBride, who was looking at a starting position probably. And if Mark Mitchell can play, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to sit a guy who was all SEC first team 2 years in a row, the leading scorer, and who was by far the best player and will be arguably the best player on this year's roster, right? Immediately, Mark Pope better not be mixing these minutes up. Play your studs, period.
I agree completely. And I'm glad y'all brought this up too, because going back to very, very quickly, going back to we owe Mark Pope apologies. Listen, we give him his flowers, right? I said when the offseason started, he either has to have a top high school recruiting class or a top transfer portal class to prove that he can actually get guys to Kentucky. He did the latter, right? He had a top transfer class. But guess what? He still ain't played a game with this roster. So I ain't giving out no apologies. Nobody's sitting here crucifying Mark Pope, right? We're just giving criticism and seeing from our point of view what needs to improve. And I'll go into this a little bit. Right. And I'll go into this a little bit more in our BSM from the stands. But absolutely, Dylan, that's like, we haven't seen results yet. And who knows, if Mark Pope wants to come out and play 12 guys, we might not have the potential that we could if you only want to go 8 or 9 deep. Right?
I think Colton may lose if he does that.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah. I'm going to go crazy. I can't stand it. The subbing has been an issue. I cannot deal with it.
Yep.
Well, you talked about BSM from the stands. So whoever it is, take us into it. I don't know what it is. Let's go.
All right. So obviously it was our most recent reel with Colton kind of talking on
these guys,
Mark Mitchell. And so listen, I see these kind of comments all the time, and it's a longer comment. So I'm just going to try to kind of skim through it here, give you the gist of it. Basically, he goes on.
Hold on. You got to get a little backstory. I mean, don't make it long, but I mean, obviously,
okay, I'll read it.
If they didn't watch Colton's reel,
I'll read it.
I'll read it.
Mark Pope's 2024-25 team was Final Four bound. Injury destroyed 60% of the preseason projected NCAA tournament starting roster. We had the best point guard in the nation when it comes to prepared and ready for the Final Four that he had already been to. Oweh, Carr, Amari, Jackson, Almanor, Chandler, an elite team. Best three-point shooter in America, Brea, a total and complete set of tools. Then it happened again, 25, 26, 60% of the preseason projected NCAA tournament starting roster. Was 25 to 26 Final Four capable? If they all stay healthy, they developed and can make a run. We will never know. Not no way, and your doom and gloom about it doesn't matter. You can't ignore it anymore. Injury destroys 60% of the preseason projected NCAA tournament starting roster of both teams. Face it and get over it. We know there's people crying in Louisville every year, every day. We don't care. They don't plug in microphones and self-soothe wearing the blue and white. So stop with the crap. You don't like Mark Pope. Nobody cares. You don't need a microphone plugged in to get temporary grief dump therapy on the daily. And here's what I got to say about this crap. All right. First off, doom and gloom. Nobody's bringing doom and gloom. Okay. We're getting on here. And I really don't understand why people keep saying bring in the doom and gloom. How many times have we said that we like Mark Pope? We want what is best for Mark Pope. Okay. But the last 7 years-ish of Kentucky basketball has been what? Mediocre at best. Mediocre. That is not.
Yeah, hold on. Before you go, though, I think. See, I think you said it in the wrong way. it's not so much about Mark Pope as is the University of Kentucky.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like, it's
okay.
not even about Mark Pope. Like, we have said over and over again, like, we like Mark Pope. It's nothing against Mark Pope. But at this point, Kentucky basketball is not where it has been in the past, and we want to get back to that. We're not okay with mediocrity, right? It's not about liking the coach that's here. It's about results, point blank period. We're the University of Kentucky. We're supposed to be the mecca of college basketball. Right now, we are not that. And if you're okay with the last 7 years of Kentucky basketball and being kind of at the middle of college basketball and not being at the top, and you don't think that things need to change and get better, and nobody's sitting here saying that Mark Pope can't do it or he won't do it. We obviously want him to. We want it to turn around as quickly as possible. But if you're okay with this mediocrity, then you just pack up your bags and go on down to our little brother down the road and start cheering for them. They're okay with just bare minimum making the tournament every year. We are not okay with that crap. And that's why we get on here. We're not saying, fire Mark Pope, do this. We just want Kentucky basketball back to the level that we know it can be. And in these first 2 years, yes, he's had some injuries, sure. And I think that first year more so than this second year, it really hurt him, losing Robinson, losing Butler. So I think that first year, yes, he had some injuries. And how many times have we said on here that he overachieved his first year? He did great his first year. Kudos to Mark Pope. He came in, short time, built a great roster. I do think that team could have went farther if we were fully healthy. Nobody's saying that. But last year comes in and we take a step back. And that's just not okay, right? Like, he had a full year to kind of get his feet underneath him. He doesn't really do great in the transfer portal, right? Like, we just talked about that. All the players were kind of role players on the teams that they came from. He didn't get any studs. This year he has. So we want to see results.
I'm still trying to figure out what game he's watching, or he or she. I don't know who. I'm trying to figure out in what sentence Lamont Butler is the best point guard in the nation. There's a guy named Walter Clayton Jr. that I got to watch an entire year dominate clutch shot after clutch shot and lead his. I mean, I just, it's not the same game I'm watching. So that's the first thing when I'm hearing that. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. And then that team right there was Final Four bound. I will argue that to the end of time, that team, and it always goes back, and I will take this from Colton, because Colton says a couple of things that are awful, but he says a lot of good things too. But Colton always has stood by, and I think it goes back to his days whenever he was controlling the golf big tournaments. He's like, whenever based on performance, you always judge a player and a team based on at their best, not what they're capable of, but at their best. And that team, I say that because when thinking of that first year Mark Pope team at their best compared to other teams at their best, was not a Final Four team. At best, it was an Elite Eight team. And also, I will bank on this, is that it would have had to have taken a run. Like, we would have had to have got hot. Injury or non-injury. With Lamont Butler healthy, yes, I still make that statement. Like, we just did not have the dudes compared to other rosters. We didn't. Did we gel well? Yes. Did we have good chemistry? Absolutely. I mean, we beat Florida, yes, at home. But again, that was early. Teams get better throughout the season. Injuries stink. Absolutely. Yes, I understand that. But we've got to stop hanging our hats on this excuse of, well, we would have been and done this had we got this, especially for last year's team. Stop it. You went
recruited a guy.
You recruited a guy coming off an ACL injury. Did we like that? Yes, but also we knew, and he should have knew, and he did know that that's a chance that he was taking. I just can't. And the gloom and glue, you've already hit that, so I'm not going to hit that. I mean, I'm not on here being depressed like I can't stand Mark Pope. Get rid of him. Get rid of him now. We've said that this is the year. This is the year that we will make that decision.
And one more thing before I throw it over to Colton. Like, I feel like a lot of these people feel like so many UK fans it's title or bust. We're not like that.
No,
like,
I just want to be competitive and be.
We don't expect a title every year, right? We just want to be up there in the conversation every year for potentially being one of the best teams in the country. Like, March Madness is the hardest tournament, I think, in the world to win. I really think it is. But, like, we want to get back to where we are top of the SEC, top 10, and if you're okay with what we've seen these last 6 or 7 years, then you're just okay with mediocrity, and that's not Kentucky basketball.
Colton, what do
Well,
you think about it?
He said
Thanks,
this to
guys.
you. He said this to you. So
I appreciate the backup. Listen, this guy's ridiculous. I mean, it's not really worth my time. Look, the injuries are. I'm not doing with the injury excuse. You want to say that about the first year, sure. I really like that team, but at the end of the day, that's what Dylan said. My stance on it. They were a good team. They were a veteran team. They had a lot of seniors, had a lot of experience. They gelled well together. But like we beat Tennessee twice that season, and before we got beat to them in the NCAA tournament, the 2 games we played Tennessee, they went 11 for 66 from 3-point range. We beat Duke, but we were down 20. We beat Gonzaga. We were down 20. Like, we were pulling out some wins on paper that were like, hey, we beat Florida. We shot 70% from the field and we won by 4. Right? Like, those are great wins on paper. And kudos for the wins, but you watch teams and you're like, if Cooper Flagg and them really wanted, if they wanted to step on our throats and they played a really good game the rest of that way, are we coming back from down 20?
At their best and our best, who you
know? Right.
Yeah.
No, exactly. It wasn't happening. And so that's where I'm at on that one. Now, last year, I get so tired of that. He built the roster. He bragged about getting depth. He went and got a guy that you knew wasn't coming back at the start of the season. You knew you were even going to miss some games with him. And at that point, you already knew you were going to miss games with him by recruiting him. And he ended up barely being able to play. Yes, the Jalen Lowe thing is tough. But at the same time, Jalen Lowe played when we got blown out to Michigan State, when we were down by a lot more than what we got beat to Louisville. Jalen Lowe played during the Gonzaga game that we were at. Right. So let's stop trying to pretend like some of these guys weren't there. We've got to stop making excuses. I'll just say this. I know I bring up Cal. I'm not even bringing up Cal for this reason, but Cal earned the right to be criticized on the last few years of his coaching tenure here because of the lack of achievement and the lack of performance. If a guy with a national title lost in another national title game, 8 Elite Eights in like a 10-year span, can get that criticism for the lack of performance because it's the University of Kentucky, so can Mark Pope. And that's not just towards Mark Pope, but he can be criticized, it's okay. It's not just personal towards him. We're just criticizing the performance.
You're looking at last year's team. I think we went 22-14. If you have Jalen Lowe, you wasn't going to have. Is he really going to? I mean, how many more games do you win with a Jalen Lowe? I mean, that's my tops is 4 at best 4. So you're still looking at a 26-10 season, which is good, but not what we, at UK would want to be, right? And again, it goes back to what Mason said, not a championship or buzz type thing. I'll end it with this because we got into this. So keep it in mind, like, why is this being talked about? Is because on the BSM from the stands, we read a comment. That is not this year's team. Until proven otherwise, Bluegrass State of Mind is optimistic, and we are going to stay that way, right? All of that, and Colton, I couldn't have said it better. If a guy that had all of those accolades can be criticized, so can a guy who has only made it to a Sweet 16 in the round of 32 at the University of Kentucky. Now, you can say, oh, give him more time, give him more time. You can't say that.
In his whole career, that's what he's made. A 16 and around a 32. Like, he hadn't won a tournament game beforehand. So let's I don't.
It's so laughable whenever people who don't know us, which again, that comes with having a podcast, but it's so funny. Like, they think like they don't know us, and like, you don't ever get us on here ever saying, I wish Kentucky would look like what? No, like what? Like, we want to win. That's all that matters. Is like, we want to win.
Keyboard warriors. One of our top fans. He comments on almost everything now.
Well, if he actually listened to the show instead of maybe the reels, he would realize, hey, these 3 guys, like, they just are critical whenever there's a time to be critical, and they praise whenever there's a time to be praised. You call it as it is. Call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it like that. But interesting. Very interesting. I still can't get over the Lamont Butler being the best point guard in the nation over a Walter Clayton Jr. I don't know about that one. But anyways, good discussion. Let's get into our last topic. Is there another topic I'm skipping over? I can't even. We're coming up on 54 minutes. So let's get into the Tour Championship. Colton, we've had a change of things, but kind of lead us into this. I didn't prep you for this, but I know you got it.
Yeah, so the Tour Championship it will begin tomorrow. We're recording this on a Wednesday. It will begin tomorrow. Last tournament of the year. Obviously, the way that the format is set up, that whoever wins this Tour Championship, it's just a regular stroke play tournament across 4 days, held at East Lake at Atlanta, Georgia. Whoever wins this tournament is essentially, it's the top 30 left in the FedEx Cup standings. Whoever wins this tournament is essentially the FedEx Cup champion of the year. They went away from the strokes the last couple of years. Before that, they were ranking, you started out at a certain score if you were number 1 through 30, and they kind of gave the first spot an advantage, like trying to get the guys, some advantage in that aspect. But anyhow, they went back to just regular, whoever's going to win this tournament is essentially going to be the FedEx Cup champion this year. Well, this is the last year of this, right? And the PGA came out with some pretty big announcement on format changes to the Tour Championship beginning next year. And, do you want me to go into it, DG, or you want to go into it?
No, you go for it, big dog.
Okay. So essentially,
but you do it.
Essentially the Tour Championship next year will consist of a championship series that will essentially end in a match play tournament for the Tour Championship. And the way that it's pretty much described is that they're going to have a 2 weekends, and one weekend you're going to be in a group of 4, and you're going to play each person one time. The top 2 in points, or whoever wins the most matches, the 2 people in that group of 4 will advance to the final weekend, and then it will be seeded essentially 1 through, I think it's 16. 1 through 16 will advance, and they'll seed that, and you'll play a match a day essentially, and whoever will go undefeated will be your Tour champion. And so I saw where the biggest thing that this does is, number one, it allows you to go one-on-one with the other person, right? You're not just playing the course. You're playing the person now. And so it's head-to-head. So it's whoever wins it is going to have to go undefeated. So you're going to take down 4 of the top 16 players in a 4-day span, one-on-one. I mean, that to me is a more proven champion than just getting hot this one tournament here, the last tournament, and winning the FedEx Cup. And then number 2, I also saw the capabilities that it's going to allow for the fan experience. Did y'all see where, there's a lot of courses around the world are so nice, but the PGA can't use them because the course doesn't want to have 20,000 fans on it. They don't want to provide the infrastructure that it costs to host 140 fields, all this stuff. And so they talked about being able to actually have these match play and these Tour Championships at different courses that they've never been able to have before. And the fans being able to have experiences like right there on top of the players. And man, I just think that the Tour has got this right. I do. I think that it finally have figured it out. I think it's just going to, the Tour's viewership has went up this year. In the last couple of years, it's went way up. And I just think that this is really going to improve it even more. They've made some really good changes. And I think with the chaos that Live is in, I think all this couldn't come at a better time. I'm excited to see the Tour Championship this week, the last time of it, and could be the last time at East Lake itself also. So I'm excited. I don't know if y'all want to get predictions, but we'll get to that. But what do y'all think of the new format, Mason?
Yeah, so I like it. I agree with you, Colton. I think that, kind of the format that they have laid out gives you a better idea of, going up against all these top guys, right? What's the first weekend going to be like? How many is it? The top 40?
It's 32. There's 32, 8 groups of 4. and then the top 16 advance.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, you're going up against the top 32. And another thing for me is, like, we talked a little bit about this earlier when we were texting about some other things, but, like, for me, like, it just makes it feel more relatable, right? Because, like, how many of us go out there and actually play in golf tournaments now, play against a whole field, right? Like, we may do that a couple times a year, but 90% of the time you're going out there and you're playing your buddies and you're going head to head with your buddies, right? So, like, it's just kind of cool to see guys out there, like, okay, these two guys are going head to head right now, right? It also brings in, you're going to see some guys playing different, right? If they're in this match play, right? Because they're going to be like, okay, well, I'm down two, so I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. I agree. Like, I think the way it is now, we'll give our picks here in a minute if we want, but like I've seen people talking about Cantlay, about how he's playing so well right now, but he hasn't won in 4 years, right? So what if he comes out and wins the Tour Championship this weekend, right? Like they were saying, he's second in tee to green strokes gained and, second iron play. And like, he's kind of turned, he played well last week, right? So like, let's say he comes out and everything's clicking this week. He hasn't won in 4 years, but he's your Tour champion because he won this one event. So I agree. I think they got it right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into. I think I said it last year. I think the PGA screwed up so bad on the FedEx Cup the past couple of years when they changed. I actually think that it was still kind of odd how that works, but at least it made sense of having a season-long FedEx Cup champion and then the separate champion who won that actual tournament. Because I can't, and it's not just because it's Scotty, but like it hurts me for him and for anybody else, and it just doesn't make sense. Like they call it the season-long race. And it's last year's the perfect example. Tommy Fleetwood, yes, he was up there, but he didn't win. Other than that tournament, and because he won that tournament, he was the FedEx Cup champion. Like, don't put season-long race with that if it's going to be a season-long race. Season-long means it's for its entirety for the whole season. Like, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I love this format because it is the match play, it is the head-to-head, but also they're going to do kind of a separate system of awarding the season-long, and then this is kind of going to be its separate entity. Is that right?
Yeah, that is true. They are bringing that part back to where they're going to award the season-long points leader,
kind of like regular season champ,
right? And then you're gonna have essentially the
champ, basically. Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like that's absolutely. Like because then, and like I love the perfect, like Patrick Cantlay. That's the perfect person. Like, yes, he is on fire, but I mean, he's not won in 4 years, but he's going to be possibly the FedEx Cup champion. Like, if I'm Scotty Scheffler or if I'm Wyndham Clark, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what in the world? That makes no sense. So I think they nailed it. I mean, I think that it is. And again, getting into the live stuff, like these guys have got to be like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I mean, I know money talks. I even said like, I would probably, I mean, not saying I wouldn't take that money because that's a lot of money. However, though, you kind of saw this coming, right? At some point.
For sure. I think it's exciting. I'm excited though for it to see, because it could be at East Lake for the last time, so I'm excited. So why don't we all give one pick and one sleeper pick, but we're going to leave out Scotty because we're just going to. I think we always agreed that if Scotty's playing, he's a favorite. So don't pick Scotty, but give one guy a pick and then one maybe somewhat of a sleeper. Although when you only have 30 players, there's not as many sleepers, right? So give one of you who's your very favorite, but you would want to also, like, you could see winning.
If you're already young, go ahead. I know who my sleeper is.
Go.
Other than Scotty, but I'm trying to think of who maybe.
I'm going to go Rory as a favorite. Obviously, he played well last week. I saw some comments where he's basically saying it's the playoffs are a 3-week long event. Like, he's getting dialed in a little bit. Obviously, he has the ability. I think he's won here 3 times. Is that right? I think he's won the championship 3 times. So, yeah, I mean, I could see Rory having a good week. And then my sleeper, I talked about a minute ago, Patrick Cantlay. He's playing well right now. He hadn't won in a while, but played well last week. He was kind of right up there near the top. If he can hit some putts, watch out.
No, I like that. I'm going to go with So I'm going to go with Fitzpatrick. I think Matt Fitzpatrick has also had a good season, and I think that he's going to win, which would technically be, I want to say, his 4th win of the season. And so I think that he could maybe even get into that Player of the Year conversation after this one. But I think he's had a good year, and I could see him finishing it off with this. And then my sleeper is going to be Chris Goddard. I think he's had a great year too. He's a good ball striker. If he can just make enough putts and get off the tee decent, he's had a great season also, 3 wins. I think Goddard's going to be my sleeper for this week.
Oh man, this is really tough. I'll start with my sleeper because I really like my sleeper. I'm gonna go Siwoo Kim. I think he has played really well the past 3 weeks. He just hasn't been able to get over the finish line. He's like really had to fight himself into each position. He's caught fire here, it seems like, the latter half of the season. So that's going to be my sleeper. He is playing, right? He did make it. He made it finally, because I know he was out at one point. He had to come in. But and then my favorite other than Scotty and without him, I was going to say Chris Goddard, but I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to say Xander. Xander last week, the weekend, finally started playing well. He's just, I don't know. When Xander is playing at his best, I think he's up there with Scotty and Rory. And I just think that, he had the injury, took him a little while to get back in the flow of things. But I'm going to go Xander. That's based off just a pure guess, not really in particular reason other than because I think Scotty, and I was going to say Chris Goddard, but I'll just go Xander.
He plays East Lake well. Alexander has in the past.
Oh yeah, that is right.
He played the East Lake very well. He had 3 or 4 straight years there where he's constant top 5.
I know, but last year was the first time he hadn't, I think, cracked top 5 in so many years.
But you're right. Xander's a great player. He's one of those that doesn't have a whole lot of weaknesses. Like he's just one of those. When he's making putts, he's as tough as anyone to beat. Just like Scotty, when they're making putts, those 2 guys, their ball striking and everything's so good that it's just, it's tough to beat them if they can make enough putts. So
yeah. Well, man, what an episode! What a lot of information to unpack, and it's not even over yet. I will say this exciting news though: this time next week, we will be prepping for Kentucky and Youngstown State. Kentucky kicks off not this Saturday, but next Saturday. Exciting stuff. College football starts up Friday. Man, it's here. Well, hey, thank you all for listening in. This has been another episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. Please go ahead and follow us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Our socials on X, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and follow us on our podcast shows, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And yeah, fellas, we want Kentucky to succeed. That's all we want, right?
Absolutely. Doom and gloom.
There we go. What are they talking about? So with that being said, as always, go Cats.
Go Cats.
That's a wrap for this episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, be on the lookout for our social media pages and be sure to follow them. We've got plenty more stories, insights, and conversations coming your way. And if you really loved it, make sure to share it with a friend. From the hills to the hollers, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep that Kentucky spirit strong.